everybody. Our guest is late. He's stuck in traffic. So I figured Leighton and I can just chop it up until he shows up. He should be here in about 15 minutes. But Leighton, you know, we're talking, soil most of the time. We're talking about all things that are about plants, etc. And now we're bringing on a naturopath because we also talk about human health. We've talked about your puppy's health as well. But how does this all come together? Why does it all come together under one umbrella?
Well, you miss spirituality, you miss magnetism, you miss energy, you miss vibration.
Energy, frequency, vibration. I know Nikola Tesla.
Yep, hypo. So, I mean, in reality, I think that the key to the whole thing, life, is wrapped up in starting with the soil, because without soil, there would be no life. And then you start layering in these other variables, or how do I say this, parts of the puzzle, because, in the bigger picture, humans wouldn't be here if we didn't have, those deeper connections to, the soil and everything else. I mean, we evolved. Well, there's a lot of theories behind how we evolved, whether it's, gene splicing by the Anunnaki, or whether it was apes that started eating mushrooms and started to grow a neural network in their brains. But bottom line, yeah, they're all connected. They're critical for our conscience, for us to, be able to have conversations like this. So I think that's where it all comes into play. And I think, specifically like naturopath is a critical piece of the puzzle right now because of the degraded soil, because we're not getting any nutrients, vitamins and minerals from what we consume and what consumes what we grow. So
I think a lot of it, like you said, it really comes down to the cells, and the cells need that energy. That's where the energy, frequency, vibration. But the building blocks of all cells, all organic life, whether it's plants, animals, humans, it really all comes into the same envelope of the health of the cell is a healthy plant. The health of a cell is a healthy human or pet or animal, or, Cheeto and Poe sitting on your lap. If you're not giving them the building blocks to build healthy cells, then they can't be healthy.
No, I agreed 100%. Just look at what happened post, I don't know, 1920 with human health. It's just crashed. And, you can say I'm a conspiracy theorist, but this was all a playbook by Rockefeller, to, first of all, educate a workforce, not a free thinking, creative mind, problem solving people. It was to program them to just shut up and do what I tell you. I mean, you look at the school system. It's if you can step back. See, that's the problem. Is most people can't step back. They're too busy, too consumed, too overwhelmed to really have the opportunity to step back and look at the bigger picture. We create yes people that are just do this, yes, right? But that's a robot.
Yeah.
And where are we now with robots? It's crazy. But if you think about it, like the people that are robots are going to be replaced by robots. There's no doubt about it. The path is very clear. And again, whether, the Rockefellers and the big boys all saw this coming to the point where now all of a sudden we have a huge population that there's going to be no work for. I don't think they saw that coming. I think that was just the technological advances that occurred. Well, probably starting in post-war. I think there was a lot of technology that advanced during the war crisis. Due to the nature of what we were up against, we had to come up with better, faster ways of doing things. And that never stopped. And I mean, the technology in the 70s that I got to expose to when I was in the 90s, I got to work with a gentleman who actually worked with a brilliant scientist who harvested brilliant minds out of MIT. And he created this company called, it'll come to me, where it was an incubator. And so he would take these brilliant scientists out of MIT, give them a workspace, all of the equipment they needed to prove out or bring to market whatever they were working on. Thermal electron out of Natick in Framingham.
Okay.
He did this, like over and over and over again. And so James, or Jim, one of my partners at the time, he and I worked together. He was a commercial contractor. I was more of a residential general contractor, although I dabbled in commercial a little bit. He would tell me these stories about building out these labs, repeatedly, like, and once they either proved it or they were ready to go to market, well, they'd trash that lab and they'd either build them out a manufacturing facility, or again, if they proved it out and it was a technology that the government wanted, then that technology would go to one of the manufacturers or defense contractors. Either way, the labs constantly were being built and ripped apart and then rebuilt in a new manner. So he got to see some of the most incredible cutting edge technology that was like, light years ahead of what we as the general populace got to see or know about. And so the stories coming out of there were incredible. I mean, the one of the saddest things was the new energy. Like, they had so many different ways to create alternative energies. Most of them got buried. Most of them were brought to a patent, and then once it was patented, there's a special law that was passed by Congress to basically, if you created something that was 40% or greater more efficient than what was present on the market, the patent had to be shelved. Now, the person that created the patent was financially rewarded, but not the human race. The human race it was taken away from. So sure, that guy got rich, but what he was building should have been the standard for the human race to push forward this way of saving the economy and saving the masses from being, look what's going on now, shrinkflation. Everything's more expensive, more expensive, more expensive. You look at what I earned for wages in the 80s. I bought a house when I was 26, lived very comfortably. All I had to do was show up and do what I said I was going to do. I made a hell of a good living. I had savings. I had money in the bank. You can't do that anymore. My son's 26-year-old boy, he's fucked. And so that's the spiraling that occurred as a result of not releasing the technologies that were invented and created to move the human race forward in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of a positive way, Leighton, just to let you know, we're live on Facebook, looks at LinkedIn and X, but for some reason, YouTube hasn't started our stream yet.
Really?
We
getting blocked?
I don't know, because like I said, we're live on the other platforms, but I'm trying to bring it up on the YouTube on my end, and it's just saying it's going to start at 3:00. So anyway, we're live on the other platforms. I don't know what's going on with YouTube today.
So if it means live at 3, that means the people that listen are only going to get an hour of content.
Well, the thing is, it should be live right now.
I can't see or hear.
Like Lily's standing beside me, she can't see or hear, and I've got it on my second monitor, and it's just showing the thumbnail. But yet I go to Facebook and we're live on Facebook. So
you want to pull off and restart?
The thing is, if I do that, I have to rebuild the entire show. So let me just, I know StreamYard's always doing updates, etc. But I don't know. We've never had this problem before. Yeah, I don't understand why it is doing what it's doing. Yeah, we're live on X. It's got to be just the YouTube thing. Let me see if I can go to my YouTube channel. Sorry, audience. We're trying to. We've never had this issue before.
I know you feel so good. Oh, got his grooming this morning. You have to manage their undercoat with these dogs. As soon as it gets hot, they get super itchy and they just start, what is it called? Cornrowing, biting at themselves to try to get the undercoat out. And then it takes off the protection coat, the outer layer, which is, I forget what the term is called. So you have to manage the undercoat to prevent them from like literally chewing the hair right off of their body. And so because he's blind in one eye and very sticky as a dog, they have to be right wherever I am. I can't drop him off and get groomed. He has to, I have to stand there with him because he'll freak out. And so I got my appointment, but it was, it took 3 weeks to get it.
Hey, Will.
Hey, good afternoon.
Just to let you know, Will, we're live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and X, but for some reason, we're not going out to YouTube. It's just sitting there waiting, but we're going to be doing the show anyway. If you can turn your phone a quarter turn so we can get the wide, there we go. I'll let you and Leighton yap on here, and I'll try to see if I can figure out what's going on in the back end.
Thanks, Ken.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. Hi, Leighton.
Hey, Will, how are you, my friend?
I am late, and I appreciate your kindness. Traffic and traveling sometimes just gets a little bit crazy.
Oh, tell me about it. I had a crazy day myself. I was going to run out of gas if I didn't pull into the gas station. I literally pulled up got on at 5 o'clock. So, or, at the 2 o'clock deadline. So anyway, I totally get it. So it's been a minute since we've had you on. Do you want to give us an update?
Oh, an update. Yeah, well, so our regarding the products that we're having for the soil is we have a lot of trials and demonstrations going on all over the country. That's part of my traveling around, and the outcome and the testimonies with the use of things is amazing. I don't know if you want to hear any of those things. That's kind of the.
Go ahead. Start with the beginning. Tell us about the product first. And
sure.
What you're finding out and any testing that you're doing.
Yeah. So so a little backstory. In 1992, I was given a box of books. In that box of books was the several books. One was the several presentations by Rudolf Steiner about agriculture and biodynamics. And another one was called The Agricultural Testament by Sir Walter Russell.
Okay, I know him well. I read him.
And so I began reading biodynamics and then practicing biodynamics and figuring some things out for myself. And that's actually where we're at with Soil Saviors right now. Is basically we've taken all the dogma out of biodynamics and made it commercially available and user friendly and very user easy. So it's follow the steps, get the results. And for instance, some of the results, we have an acre demonstration right now in a 1,800 acre ginkgo biloba plantation in the Carolinas, and they had a freeze last month. And our 1 acre demonstration was the only one that didn't lose the leaves or new growth. The rest of it, the rest of the plantation lost all its leaves and new growth and has to start over. And it was 26 degrees for somewhere between 4 and 6 hours, depending on what data you're looking at. But so by increasing the Brix reading and increasing the vitality and whatnot of the plant and the soil, the plant is able to withstand 26 degrees easily without even slowing the growth down.
Okay, so let's back it up. Is this from seed, or is this seedlings, or planted, or?
This plantation was planted in 1988.
So these are mature trees.
These are mature trees, right?
And so they were just leafing out for the spring.
Correct.
Were they in flower yet, or just leaf?
Just the leaves, just the leaves and new growth. I'll be down there in 2.5 weeks to for another application of product. So I don't know exactly. I've got pictures that they're supposed to send me. I haven't got them yet.
Got you. All right. So bottom line is, which preps were you using? Let's back it up. Most people in here, or most people on this channel, do not totally understand the preparations are used. So let's start with the preps and go from there.
Okay, so the preps are in, or biodynamic preparations, 500s, 501, whatever, all the different, there is a total, I believe, 4 or 5 different preparations in amongst our products. And if you go to soilsaviors.org, you can watch, look, and all about the different products. There's actually 7 different components or ingredients, and the preparations are within those ingredients. And for instance, I have a mentor partner of mine that makes does the cow horn, where he's feeding his dairy cows a specific diet to then create the manure, and then taking that manure and packing. I think he packs somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 cow horns a year. For that particular preparation, he does nettles and silica, and all that. He does quite a few other preps, but I only use, I think it's 4 or 5 of them.
So that's the 500, right? Is the cow horn?
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah. And so go ahead.
I'm just trying to make sure that people understand, what exactly you're talking about, because I know but
yeah,
the problem is that they don't. So what happens is he packs a cow horn that's been hollowed out with manure, buries it on a certain time. I think it's a full moon or a new moon.
Correct. It's full moon, certain time of year in the spring.
Yep. And then it sits there for 6 months, and then it's harvested, and then it's used how?
Well, we actually have a 2-year incubation process. So we've taken some things and stretched it out to even get more etheric and earth energetics, as well as the microbial components into the mixture. And so we've gone far, beyond just the preps. So, because again, I don't believe the Rudolf Steiner, if we were to hold fast to just Rudolf Steiner's way of doing things in today's world, I believe that's inaccurate, because Rudolf Steiner did something and then said, here, I believe in, say, here, take this and make it better.
Yep, agreed.
And that's what I believe we have done, because we're able to augment the environment when we spray our products into the environment, where these really unique things like 26 degrees, and a tree, an established tree, doesn't lose its leaves when every other 1,000 acres of them do lose their leaves all around it. I've got one gal that she's on her 6th or 7th application of our products, and this is going into the 2nd season now. The elk in northern New Mexico are drawn into this area where there is no elk. She's never seen elk there before. She's lived there like almost 40 years.
All right, so you're jumping ahead, which is plenty of time. We got plenty of time. So let's
okay.
go back to the preps so that we understand what you're talking about. So the 501 is the prep that you wait for 2 years, or is that something else?
The cow horn. The cow horn prep is the one that we've modified to actually a 2-year incubation. So it comes out of the horn, and then it goes into another earthen pit that is then combined with the it's combined with and I don't remember the numbers of all these preps, but I know there's the silica prep, and then there's a nettles prep, and then we then use some composted, which we have our own bed of kelp in the Atlantic that we harvest out of, and that all gets combined, and then that goes into a pit for the second half of the incubation period.
So for a year.
Correct. Yeah, about a year. Yep.
All right. So I better understand. You dig a pit. It's so that it's an earthen pit. Its walls are earth.
We're using concrete. We're using concrete for the walls. They're round, and they have holes in them. They're kind of a special thing where my partner has developed. So then the product inside is able to be contained within the pit, so it's easy to harvest. But yet there's holes that he has put into the side of the walls to then be able to reach out into different levels of the earth, because this is buried fairly deep into the earth. So we're getting a lot of different temperature ranges, different moisture ranges. We're getting different microbial growths in different layers because it goes fairly deep into the earth.
So when you start adding in all of your ingredients, are you layering it, or are you mixing it and just dumping it in there?
Oh no, they're layered. Specifically, the different ingredients are all layered in there. And again, that's a bit of a proprietary thing, but it's all layered in there. That's also timed, just like the cow horn. The cow horn burying on a certain time. This transfer from the cow horn into the pit, the earthen pit, is also timed to encourage the gathering of the etheric and the earth energies, as well as the microbial components.
Nice. Okay, so now we know that you're lasagna. You lasagna this pit, and so then you let it sit for 6 months. Are you adding water at all, or are you just letting it?
We monitor moisture. We monitor microbial activity, and then when the time is right, then we take it out of that pit, and then it goes into a storage pit after that, just sitting there. Then at that point in time, it just sits until it's ready for use. So that whole process is about 24 months.
All right, and so when you harvest it, I assume you're blending it together.
Then that is one ingredient, yes, that goes into the earth compound. Off our website, you can see about that. So that is just one ingredient then in earth compound.
Okay, all right. So basically, are you using temperature at all? And when you say monitoring microbials, are you doing direct microscopy, DNA? How are you determining microbial communities?
We use radionics or scalar technology to do all our lab work and monitoring. So I'm monitoring strains. I'm monitoring. We have over 1,000 different strains throughout the entire system. So we're monitoring each ingredient with the strains, as well as we're monitoring general vitality. We're monitoring vortex energies. There's over 70 different items that we monitor during the process that gives us the ability to know when it's ready and when we should let it wait, basically incubate longer.
Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about those testing equipment. Can you
Sure.
tell us more about the methods?
I mean, it's readily available. It's been available for 101 years. It's nothing new. It's just that most of the academic world does not recognize it or understand it. There's a correlation between the scalar field numbers that then through equations you can get over to parts per million. You can get over to different in the technology, you can look it up online. Our technology, it's let's see, I'm trying to think of it's called biofield data analyzing or analyzer, I think is the name of the machine. Biofield data analyzer, I believe, is the description of the machine. You can go online, and the machine itself is the SE5 2000. That's the newest version. And then I was taught how to formulate my own programs. So then we're able to look for certain things that from our standpoint, the way we look at things.
So is this like a core sample?
You could take a core sample and analyze a sample. Yep. You can analyze a picture. You can analyze a sample. It's basically any representation of what you're looking at.
So are you analyzing the individual ingredients or the whole thing?
Either. Yeah, you can analyze the whole thing, or within the software in the computer system, we can break it down to look at each individual ingredient. So when I'm doing, for instance, heavy remediation, like I've got some projects going right now on some oil spills cleanup and some radioactive spill cleanup, I'm looking for specific things like barium or cesium, I think it's like 137, or uranium 240 something. I'm looking for specific elements. I can be very specific, or I can be very broad in what I'm looking for.
Okay, so you're basically blending ingredients to doing specific specific biology for specific remediation tasks.
To some extent, we've done a lot of testing right now with our whole system, which is a broad system with the 7 components off soil saviors, and we've been able to digest with those microbes. We've been able to digest things like strontium and barium and uranium. We have been able to break down metals, and so they're into a they're not in metal form anymore. They're non-detect. We've been able to now break down you've heard of PFASs or forever chemicals. Well, that's a misnomer now. We've been able to digest those now. We've got the third-party verification a couple of years ago. So there's basically nothing, even some unique chemistry, like there's some pesticides that are kind of unique, like DDT or toxaphene or some of these other very unique chemistry. We've been able to break those down as well and make them non-toxic.
So when you say break down, you're saying by applying your product onto contaminated soils for a period of time or a number of applications, you're coming back with the non-detects.
Correct. Yeah, we're spraying our product down into the environment on the area, and the microbes, they detect the contaminants, and they create exudates or enzymatic products from just their metabolism, and to break down the contaminants, because the microbes, they want to make the environment healthy for themselves. And so then they do all the work. They're sensing, oh yeah, there's uranium in the environment. So then the microbes create the exudate or the enzymes to then break down the molecules down. So then when you test for, say, uranium-234, it's no longer there because it has been transmuted from that particular, what they're calling a toxic element, into something else, non-toxic.
Yeah, they're basically pulling it apart and using it as foods to a point.
Exactly what they're doing.
Where it's,
exactly.
It's consumed and it's gone.
It's yep, exactly.
Very interesting. So, man, we could take this conversation a number of different directions, but I'll try to stay focused. Can you like tell us like how many applications it takes to get to that, or does that depend on the level of contamination?
Yeah, it's kind of a site-specific thing. I can tell you, let's see, the PFAS study that we did, that was in soil that was contaminated. That come out of a municipal composting facility that put biosolids from their municipal waste into the municipal composting facility and was laden with PFASs, like 99 different kinds of PFASs. That was a 2-month study, and there was, I believe, 4 or 5 applications of soil savers to that soil over the course of 2 months or 8 weeks. And to get the result, and then we had the test done at 8 weeks to find out that we broke down the PFASs in 8 weeks.
Nice. So did you do anything in the middle? Did you test it 4 weeks or just straight 8?
On that one, that was supposed to have been a 4-month study. We were going to do the middle was 2 months, but
gotcha.
They sold the property, got sold, and our 4-month study had to be reduced to 2 months. So we just pulled samples at 2 months, which was the normal halfway mark. And that's when we found out what our success rate was. I think there was around 100 PFAS compounds that were tested, and we broke down. It was over 90% of them. So over 90 of them got broke down completely to non-detect. There was a couple of lingering ones. They were severely reduced. They weren't completely non-detect at that 2-month time frame. But we were still over 90% broke down non-detect.
Well, it's a shame you couldn't go to 4 months and see if you nailed everything down.
Yeah, well, the piece of property I got sold. I didn't have a say in that. So there was another one I worked in North Carolina after the Hurricane Helene went through, and all that radiation and petrochemicals and all that stuff washed down those 3 rivers. We actually did that study. That demonstration took place November, December, January, February. So it was over the winter that we did the work. It was, and that was heavy metals. It was arsenic, lead, cadmium, a few other ones I don't remember off the top of my head. There was some radioactive elements. Strontium was one of them. Uranium. And then there was some other chemistry involved, hydrocarbons and so forth. And basically, again, we successfully broke those down even through winter in the Carolinas there. And so, but that was a 4-month plus study. We didn't. There was some halfway testing. I don't remember that because I was just interested in the end. Again, the Corps of Engineers did all of that testing and verified the results. So those are, again, I don't think it gets a whole lot better of results when the Corps of Engineers gives you the sign off on that. I think you pretty much have crossed the finish line.
That's the Army Corps of Engineers, correct?
The Army Corps of Engineers, yes, correct.
And they're a subcontractor. In soil or soil and water?
Those were just soil.
Okay.
Those were along the river.
Yep.
Along the French Broad River, south. It would be just about 15 minutes downstream from Asheville.
Got you. And that would have been in the flood zones.
Correct.
Gotcha.
We were up where that was flooded for a very long period of time. It's up, and then they actually installed a food forest and we're growing, actively growing while we were mediating at the same time. So Billy Bond, permaculture expert there in North Carolina, conducted that study and did a videos archiving the video progress of all of that there in North Carolina.
Are they going to test the foods when they're done?
I have no idea about further testing. I'll be seeing him in 3 weeks as well. I'll be there in North Carolina following up. I don't know what the future brings for those test sites.
So where are you exactly located?
So I have a facility in West Virginia, Oklahoma, and partners in 3 other places. So we're expanding and diversifying, decentralizing around the country because we're getting busier and more people are really seeing the value in this for their own gardens.
All right, so let's roll it back. So we have an understanding of your process. We have an understanding of your product. Now, is your product pelletized, liquidized? What is the form that the end user uses?
The end user is going to be applying a liquid, a spray.
Okay.
The ingredients, there are some solid ingredients and some liquid ingredients. They get mixed together and activated in water. You're making a concentrate, and then you're blending the concentrate with water to get it out onto either foliar spray, soil app. I mean, the plants will take it foliarly just fine. It's a great feed, foliar feed, as well as just spraying it on the soil as well to get the microbial and the other nutrition into the soil to do their work in the soil. You can do it any time of year, any growing season. I shouldn't say any time of year. If you live in this area where your soil freezes solid, like way up north, you obviously don't want to use it then because it's not going to do any good. But like in North Carolina, where the soil still stays fairly warm, they do get some snow, and where in your lower states you can use year round like that. Texas, Florida, California, it doesn't really matter the growing season. Whatever stage of growth your plants are in, it happens to be a great stimulator, growth stimulator. So it's going to exaggerate whatever level of growth or stage of growth you're at.
Now, if you spray it on frozen soil, won't it be available in spring?
It will be, but you're going to lose some. So I like to put it on in the fall on soil. So I like to load it. So it's going to then create an environment in there itself going into winter. So it's going to create a little more biofilm and a little bit more environment to protect itself rather than spraying it while it's frozen. To me, I think you're better off spraying it in the fall, or as soon as the ground starts to thaw out and warm up, to spray it in the spring. You're not going to save anything by putting it on in the winter.
So I did some studies on just that because I lived in New England, and of course our soils freeze.
Right.
Fact, we are required through building codes to dig 4 foot deep to build our concrete walls so that they're below the threat of freezing. So that tells you how deep it freezes. Generally, it's 2 to 3 feet, but we were required to go to full 4 feet. So I was, being the curious guy I am, I did a series of tests where I sprayed on soil that was in the process of freezing, in the process of freezing with snow, frozen, bare, frozen with snow, and then went back in the spring and tested all of them to see, what percentage of my biota survived from, testing it prior and then applying it and then coming back in spring and testing it. And I was actually very pleasantly surprised that pretty much across the board, everything lived. So the only place that really didn't do as well was the bare soil without the snow. So the snow does provide an insulation that's better than without. So that was really eye-opening to me. And the reason I did that was because I was desperate. I could only work 6 months out of the year. So it was very difficult to support myself in New I had to work my ass off spring, summer, fall. And then, come winter, I'd slowly start to get back in debt again, and then come out in the spring, and it was like, all right, now I got to pay that debt back and hustle my ass off, and it was just no way to live. So my goal was to be able to apply it in the winter, on fields that were frozen, because you could drive equipment on them. If they weren't frozen and it was, in the late fall, it's muddy. You sink your tractor, you sink your equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So, it wasn't, you got to have the soil either frozen or dry enough that you can drive across it without sinking. And that was a real challenge. So just, that's an FYI for you, that you probably can and will, or your microbes will survive under those conditions. But it's always best to have that snow, that insulating factor.
Sure.
The product went right through the snow. Like, you could see the holes where it penetrated down. So anyway,
nice.
Sorry to get off subject.
No, that's fine, because I was raised and did a lot of my initial research back in the 90s in northern Minnesota, where we had to dig down. We were right on like the level or area 2, zone 2 up there. So we were between 8 and 10 feet down for foundations. And so that's, I'm familiar to some extent of having to farm and do things in the conditions you're talking about, for sure.
Yeah, it's tough. It's no joke. All right, so now we know most of the ingredients in your product. You have an activation, a liquid that activates it. Can you tell us about the liquid?
Yeah, so we have we have 90 different sea minerals in there. We have 5 different kelps from around the world that are blended in there. We have the dry product is coming from, let's see, there's humic and fulvic acid material that's coming from several places on the planet. There's a high paramagnetic material that comes from a couple places on the planet. There's microbes, over 1,000 species or strains that have been collected from around the planet now, that we have for bacteria, fungi, from all different. They're called extremophiles because they come from extreme environments. That's why they work well when it's cold, as well as when it's extremely hot. So then these microbes then create the exudates that give a plant, like those ginkgo bilobas I was talking about, partly the ability, not only from the elements that are in the mixture, but also the microbial exudates to help the plant exist in extreme cold and extreme heat. So it really lowers the stress rates of the environmental swings in temperature.
So Ken just threw up about, 7 products. Each one of those, I assume, are targeted for specific things. Like, tell us about the earth compound.
The earth compound is what I was talking about earlier. That's the where most of the dry preps are in that particular product. The earth syrup is a heavy nutrient. There is some molasses. There's green sand. There's different minerals from around the planet that go into that particular one, and high in mycelia in that particular ingredient.
You mean spores? Because you're probably not growing mycelium in dirt.
So our mycelium takes several years. Again, that's a whole other proprietary process for our mycelium that's coming out of Arizona. That's again a proprietary thing, but it's then dried and then it's ground up, and it's just one of the ingredients in there. So we're getting small amounts of culture. It's spore form as well as the culture itself, because we're literally just drying it down and then grinding it on its base material. And so then when you put it into the water, and all of these go into water and then get mixed up, they become activated at that point and come alive and start doing their thing, which is multiplying and eating.
So all of these are powders.
Earth syrup is a powder. Earth Angel is a dry powder. Earth Compound is a dry powder. And then as you get keep scrolling there, you'll see their resonator is a liquid. The kelp is a liquid that's fermented. 5 different kinds of kelp fermented in there with some humic and fulvic is added into that, and some other. See, there is some preps in the Earth kelp and in the Earth tonic. There is some preps that are added into there as well in the fermentation process of the way we ferment them. The licorice comes out of the Arctic Circle, way down deep in an ancient swamp. And so that's where that comes from. So that's why there's microorganisms in almost all of our products from different parts of the world.
And tell us a little bit about the Earth Tonic.
Earth Tonic is actually seawater that's collected on the Atlantic. A friend of mine goes out and collects that. He's a retired oceanographer, 40 some years. There's this area in the Atlantic that's very deep, like it's a deep, and a lot the seawater. He's found that it settles and condenses the minerals into this deep area, and he sucks that out, brings that up onto land, and at his place out in New York, he ferments that. And then adds, there's some preps that he adds to that. I forget if it's like the 502 or something. I don't remember the exact preps, but he adds that in the fermentation process. And then it goes through a vortexing, mixing process for an extended period of time to basically bring in as much. So you're taking deep ocean water, and then you're then energizing it with etheric energy in the vortexing mixing machine that he has, we have.
All right, and so that one again was a powder form.
That Earth Tonic is a liquid.
Okay, because it looked like a powder, but that's So the last 3 were liquids. The first 4 were powders.
I believe so. That's how it is. Yeah, I don't remember what was on the screen then, but I couldn't see it well.
All right, so. Bottom line is each one of those is designed to be used in a specific application, but also can be blended together for certain applications as well. Is that
yes, but I would do it backwards. It's designed to be all ingredients, like a cake mix that go into a system that then applied in a general form. They do work individually, but they work better as a system.
Okay.
And as a system, then you're able to deploy that into different environments that then work. So if you're in a thicker contaminated area, you would put down or spray or apply more product over time, like every week or 2 weeks apart. When we get into the heavy, really strange or unique chemistry situations on a contaminant, then we'll look at separating the ingredients out depending on the site. And then we would just add 1 or 2, or we would blend them differently depending on the chemistry that we're having to deal with.
Gotcha. So, but fully, you're intending for the client to, or maybe you sell it as all mixed together. So
it's a kit. No, it's sold as a kit.
Okay.
It's designed for general agriculture or homeowners. It's designed. You have the ingredients. They're all in there's a specific recipe to follow that is going to be applied no matter what you're growing. If it's sugar, if it's beets, or if it's lettuce, or if it's hay. You would use it in a general agricultural setting by following the recipe that comes in the system in the box.
Interesting. Okay, but for the most part, it's intended to be used as all in one. All 7 of those preps.
Correct.
Okay, cool. As far as application rate, and we should talk about this, like what is, on a typical agricultural use, not a cleanup.
Sure.
What is the cost per acre at the end?
So I believe, and again, my partner Pat Militich does most of the marketing through Soil Saviors on that.
Yep.
You'll have to look at the price. I think it's like $75 an acre per application. 75 or 79, I'm not quite sure, but you're getting basically this is replacing most of your fertility program, and you're significantly reducing, at least in the first year of application, your pesticide use, and usually by the second or third year, if you're applying it in between the growing seasons, you're pretty much diminishing the need for pesticides or your commercial fertilizer use.
So you said mostly. Do you still encourage farmers to transition with NPK and this?
You can. It comes down to cost, really, because because foliar spraying, you can apply to the soil and then you foliar spray. The plants are going to use this stuff up. Hold on a second here. The plants are going to use this up like nobody's business, because these elements are not in the soil for the most part. And so when you spray this on, it gets used up immediately. The plants just take it in either through the roots or through the leaves immediately. And so then there's not much carryover in that situation, because most land is so deficient of all these other elements. Like I've done some soil sampling, and for instance, yttrium, which is a very small minor element that's needed for high level immune function, but our soil pretty much doesn't have it in it. Our soil pretty much is deficient of selenium, iodine, a lot of these other minerals in our soil we just don't have them there anymore. They're not there available to the plant. So when you give it to the plant just takes it in right away and uses it. And so
yeah, I see that a lot. Copper deficiency, molybdenum deficiency, a lot of these trace minerals are just non-detect across the board.
Pretty much, yeah.
So I could see why this would have some incredible value as far as providing those plants those critical things that are enzymatically used to fold proteins, to make peptides, all of these other critical things and this is one of the reasons why our food sucks nowadays, is because the plant literally can't do that. There's just no way. It doesn't have the ability due to the fact it's been poisoned, both pesticides and synthetic fertilizers, as well as has burned up the soil. It's literally mined everything it possibly could.
Right.
I'm working on a project right now that the trees last fall, they're finger limes. Last fall, you take a finger lime, snap it open, and taste it. It had this incredibly sweet but tart or after flavor. I mean, they were amazing. Like, they just blew my mind. I'd never seen a finger lime, and they're way more potent than a lime. And this spring, I went back and did some further testing because they're having a lot of problems with the trees, and it had mined all the potassium out of the soil, and it still had some traces or a fair level of potassium in the sap, but almost nothing, like 1/3 or 1/4 of what it was supposed to have in the soil for it to do its work. So this is what I'm trying to say, is that this is great because you're giving it everything it needs, on the spot, and it can store it in the biology. So it's not going to go to waste, especially in a tree that lives, multiple years. It can build up a reservoir for itself. And I'm sure the same thing is true in the soil. It might disappear, but it might still be somewhat present in the bacterial communities. So as far as application rates, so you're saying that typically, well, let me ask you it this way. Over time, does it build up, or is it still necessary for you to apply this every year indefinitely?
Well, at this point, we haven't reached a point of saturation because most people are growing things and mining that soil at a deficit, because they're taking the fruit or they're taking the produce or they're taking the hay, the products that are being raised, and they're shipping it off farm, and they're not putting back in the soil what they're taking off. And so, even after 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, there's still a need for this because most of the nutrients are going off the land and not being replenished in a fast enough fashion.
That's why I love that Sir William, I forget his name, because he talked all about leaving half behind, right, to replenish the soil and the microbes for the next season.
Right.
And that's, they did that and it worked great. Even though they were tilling, they were still leaving a certain amount, 50% of the crop behind for the soil to rejuvenate and the microbes to stay, healthy. So unfortunately nowadays, because of the system, and I'm saying it because it is the fact, the farmers are squeezed on all sides. So they have to produce. They have to remove every single asset that they have just to keep their head above water. If they left 50% behind in the field, they're out of business in 1 year. So I could see how this would be very valuable.
I have a good example because we did an analysis a few years ago about that, just about the value. And so this was in the Central Valley of California. The study and demonstration was in field tomatoes, which went for ketchup. And so we took an acre. We applied, I believe there was 4 applications of our product over the course of that growing season. The outcome was a 48% increase in overall volume yield. So tonnage, 48% increase. We had a 500% increase in bricks reading. We had on nutrient value for the farmer made $65,000 more per acre with because they're ticking all these boxes. You got the yield increase box, you've got the bricks reading, you've got flavor profile. We topped the flavor profile, so ours tasted sweeter, not bitter. It had the skin. The skin strength and texture was basically the best out of 18 other. They were testing 18 different products or systems in this big demonstration. We topped it with evenness in flowering. We had the best in evenness of ripening, and we had the best in the skin, which would be the skin topic was the ability not to bruise and to make it to the factory without having the least amount of problems regarding the skin breaking open or fracturing or things like that. And so out of all those categories, we made the farmer $65,000 more above the control with our system, and the control was their regular, USDA NPK type fertilizers and stuff like that. So, so value is, this is what people don't understand, is when you have a nutrient dense plant, it's going to produce a higher value fruit or product. And this goes for even hay. We've done some testing in hay in Oklahoma where we had a 20-acre field and we only did 2 applications of our product on that. It went from 70 ton of hay in 2 applications over the course of 60 days to the second cutting increased to 148 ton of hay, and the nutrient quality is higher. And the cattle let the farmer know, because that hay was sold to a neighboring farm that had over 1,000 head of cattle. And I got to talk to that farmer last summer, and his only complaint with buying that hay was his cattle would not eat his hay until all our hay was gone, because they liked our hay better. They would stand at the fence and stare at the pile of the round bales of hay if they were fed his own hay that he was using biosolids from the municipal as the fertility program on his ranch. But the cattle just would not eat that until all our hay was gone, and then they would eat his hay. And so just things like that speak for itself, where the animal is smart enough to know that it wants nutrient dense food instead of food that was fertilized with PFASs, these biosolids from the municipal waste system.
Yeah, I had the same experience with hay grown, biologically with my product, which is fish mulm or fish manure, worm castings, and then my own bio-intensive compost. The horse people kept coming back and saying, "No, I want that hay."
Yeah.
And the guy was like, "Well, why?" He goes, "Oh, you should see my horse's coat is like so glossy. They're relaxed. We don't have thrush problems anymore." It's like giving the damn horse everything it really wanted. And then unfortunately he ran out, and then he had some health issues and had to retire. And the guy that he gave his whole farm system to went right back to NPK, which is just so sad.
That's too bad.
Yeah. And I told him, I said, as long as you don't, hit this with any synthetics, the system is up and running forever. You've bought all the biology back. We put all the elements into play. We got your chemistry right, so we know that you're going to have 3, 4, 5 generations that are going to be fine as a result of the fact that we, got the chemistry right, got the biology in place, and you just got to leave it alone. Let God do its work, or the universe, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So yeah, that's really interesting. So
yeah, we sell hay into the racehorse industry, and we get basically $1 a pound for our hay because the people that use our hay in the racehorse industry know that there's a competitive edge. The hay that their horses eat from us is it's worth the extra dollars because our hay is so nutrient dense. Like you're saying, it has all what this horse needs and wants to be basically a high performing athlete. Mm-hmm. It's amazing though. It's definitely worth the while, especially if you're in the competitive racing like that, because the horses are healthier. Their bodies perform better. Like you say, their coat looks better. All their senses are more active. And it goes for people as well. If people would eat this high quality food raised with this, people know that it tastes better. They feel better, for themselves.
Agreed, 100%. So let's talk other. How long have you been doing this now? You said, I think in the beginning.
I started this back in the 1990s or early 1990s.
It's been a minute.
It's been a bit, yeah. and I've had the luxury of having over 40 different mentors in the agricultural world that have shared their knowledge firsthand with me and guided me and kind of guided my path. I didn't try to do it; it just kind of happened. I look at it more of a divine thing, because I wasn't really looking for doing this. I was looking for doing this for my own farm because I had my own dairy operation and I had a farm, and I was looking out kind of in a selfish thing because I bought part of my dad's old farm, which was basically blow sand and hardly anything would grow, and I wanted to make it a nutrient dense farm so I could sell raw milk as medicine, as food for children and for people. And so that's how this all started. I wanted my dairy animals to produce extremely valuable milk, and I knew I had to improve the soil. And so that's how I started in the 90s doing this. And so now, what is this, 30 some years later, now it's available to everybody can do this. I've done most of the heavy lifting and gone through the poverty cycle and the R&D cycle already. So now you can just take advantage of it. Just follow directions.
The poverty cycle. I love it.
I'm telling you, it was not fun. I mean, I did this self-funded, so so you can appreciate, I'm sure, that.
Totally. the R&D was bad enough, but the trying to expand and market and sell and show people, and I'm not lying, this isn't bullshit, this really works. And, it's punishing, and a lot of people don't ever make it through the other side. So,
I say most people don't, but I'm really glad I persevered, because I've seen it. I was selling raw milk, and I had a goat dairy. And there's some people, if they're familiar with goats, to have a goat milk and I kept my own bucks on the farm, and so I had a closed herd that way. And the smell and taste and flavor of the milk could get kind of off-putting certain times of year, and I never had that problem, because I was following all of these things that I was reading in all these older books. Even it was explained in a book. I just come across this book, and I encourage people to find this. It's from the 1800s or early 1900s. It was called Feed and Feedstuffs, and it actually explained the nutrient deficiencies. They knew this in 1890s. Okay, so this is not new information, but they stopped teaching it in the 1950s, and you can still find this.
It was like the 1920s and 1930s when they stopped.
That's when exactly. And so, but by putting these principles of composting, of bringing material from off farm on farm to build your nutrient stores to put into the soil, so your soil is healthy and full of life. Your plants are high vitality and full of life. Therefore, the animals and my dairy products, where people just gravitated towards them. I was selling a lot of my milk for children that were dairy intolerant, but they were not intolerant to my milk. And I liken that to the way I looked at my entire farm as an organism. The soil all the way to the finished product was an organism. It wasn't separated out individually like that.
How long did it take you to convert your goats into this, what I want to call medicine milk? Did it take years, or was it relatively quick?
No, and I bought most of my initial stock by 95. I had most of my initial stock bought, and then it took basically a year, 12 to 15, 16 months to get them over and eating my hay and things like that. And then after that, I had my own enough genetics that I really didn't buy much off farm genetics. But I was breeding in Boer along with Nubian and Alpine was my basic stock, because I was trying to get a bigger bigger frame goat, because I was selling a lot of meat. Because as anyone knows that raises dairy animals, you end up with some males and the older females and rotational stock. So I had a really good market for the meat along with my sheep, and so I was I brought in the Boer, and I found a strain, a few different breeders of Nubians that had really big animals. So I was getting, milk production increase, as well as I was trying to get a bigger animal and a diverse genetics that way. And so with my own stock, I mean, that first year, by the end of that first year, I was usually didn't have any problems at all with transitioning a new animal when I brought the new stuff in, the new genetics in. That first year, once they got bred and were in the feed cycle, in the rotation, they really didn't even have any of that bucky smell or that pungent taste or any of that stuff at all, because they were eating, they were in with everyone else. And so, here's a classic case of epigenetics. You bring in a new animal. I didn't segregate that new animal hardly at all. I had a transition period where I bring a new animal in. They would be on the edge of my pens, and then usually within 3 to 6 months, I had them transition in already. So let's, like, my animals were actually medicine for the new animal coming in. So I didn't really I had a system that I had developed transitioning them in, and I always feed heavy probiotics and other, basically medicine supplementation, just like I do with people. I feed the same way to animals, so they were getting basically the medicine or supplements right from the get-go. So there was very little transition time for new animals.
When you bought your farm, it took you, what, 5 years to get your soil to a point where you're ready to bring in the animals? Is that?
Oh, that way. No, I'll say it from this standpoint. It took me 8 years to get 10 inches of topsoil built. Okay. I was farming and bringing in, because I had to make money. I was self-funded. And so I had to make money at the same time. So I was actively farming while I was doing the building of the soil at the same time. And so I was the goofy guy out there in July plowing down grasses and replanting grasses and bringing in, spreading my compost pile all summer long, because I was in Minnesota. So I had to do most of my work in the warm weather, because I just couldn't, you can't do a whole lot. You can't, especially till the ground. And I chose tilling instead of, because I was trying to get nutrients, humic matter into that soil converted right away. And so I would do the compost, spread the composting. I had big windrows of compost. I was spreading compost. I was growing green manure. Some of my mixes I would graze with had 15, 16 different grass species. I had stuff from daikon radish all the way to, alfalfa and clovers and all different kinds of stuff I was growing. I would graze it or hay it off, and then I would till that in come late summer, and then plant another cover crop for the winter. And so I was always doing something. I spent a lot of extra money. I had off-farm income, so I was devoting a heavy amount of money into building my soil as much organic matter as I possibly can. So then by the time that 8 years came around, I actually had the ability then. I didn't need to work off-farm, because I was raising the hay. I was doing things circular then at that point, where I slowed down for a couple of years before I actually sold the farm and moved. But it was 8 years, 8 years of pretty solid adding and doing something all the time.
That's what it takes. I was going to ask you if you still had the farm, but you eventually sold it and then moved on to this.
No, that farm I sold that after 10 years. Got divorced and kind of transitioned into a different. I moved from Minnesota to Pennsylvania, and really started. That's when I really started to get the manufacturing and getting this what I've perfected here into now what we're selling through soilsavers.org, getting all the manufacturing, because it's taken a little while to because there's so many species of microbes and ingredients in there to get them stable, to keep them stable, to mix and batch, and to get them into a commercially viable package for the smaller farmers, because that's been our focus now. That has taken a little bit to get all of the R&D done to get to where we are today. There's a lot of sweat equity and physical monetary equity into what you see on that website.
Oh, I can only imagine. I mean, I went through it too, my friend, whether it was trying to freeze it, trying to harvest the microbes, try to stabilize the microbes. Anytime you're dealing with a living organism, it's a challenge. As a matter of fact, I've been playing with a method for 20 years now almost, which was to take the microbes, get them concentrated in a mud that's thin, and dry it out till it looks like alligator skin, and then knock it off with a hammer, and then rehydrate them and bring them back to life. Dude, I finally did it. It was only 2 weeks ago, but it took 19, 20 years to accomplish that. So I get it, man. This is no joke when you're dealing with this kind of advanced biology.
Right. And some of these microbes are fairly volatile, meaning sensitive. There's a couple strains that are very necessary to keep balance in and temperature or pressure or just certain other ingredients can affect them. So it's taken a little bit, and but I'm sure, like yourself, I mean the labor, the intensity, the length of time, you see the benefit now. I'm sure in your process that the outcome, it definitely is worth the travel down the path.
Yeah, but it's during the travel that's hard because you can't see the wind.
Yeah, yeah, that's the poverty cycle, I call it.
Yep. And how funny and ironic that I went down this path as a result of the divorce I had. So sometimes it takes these really tragic, horrible events in your life to really reshape who you are, what you believe, and what you don't believe. And so it sounds like you had a very similar experience that that drove to go down this road.
Yeah, very. Yeah, the change of life was really it was a blessing, really, in a way. It helped me because I really had to focus, as I had to get some things worked out because of the economic situation I was in. I had to get some things worked out in order to survive, financially. So it forced me to, go a lot of sleepless nights and do things that I normally, if I had a regular job and didn't have the economic struggle, I wouldn't have done. So to me, it's been a blessing in disguise.
In disguise. Let's make that clear, because at the time, it was brutal.
It was brutal.
But yeah, somehow, if you dig deep and really go for it, you can survive these catastrophic events. And come out the other end, like you said, and with a blessing. All right, so let me think. We've got these great examples. We understand how you make this product. We understand the different components of the product. We understand how it works and why it works. And we understand why it's important to continue to use it because you don't have the pools. You don't have the organic pools in soils anymore.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about nutrition panels. What have you seen increase as far as overall energy, protein, stuff like that?
So I just had some tests done recently. One of the interesting ones, this guy in Ohio, he's looking at carbon and nitrogen storage sinks. And he said that his tests come out, and this is he replicated this. He said 3 times, and it came up really close to the same thing. And it was a 6-to-1 carbon nitrogen store in the soil. So it actually increased. It increased the pounds of carbon into the soil by just about 1 ton per acre. And the nitrogen level was, I believe, these are off my memory here, was 193 pounds of nitrogen were developed and stored in the soil by using this system.
Yep.
And so we're just putting these products into the environment on the soil, not even looking at the plant side of it, just putting the life, the microbes and the ingredients into the soil. You're increasing the carbon and nitrogen and other. He didn't check a whole lot of. He was just looking at carbon and nitrogen fixation. Mm-hmm. It increased dramatically to a number that he's never seen before on any of his other products that he's tested over the last 15 years.
And that is so not surprising. And the reason why is that the lower the carbon to nitrogen ratio is, the more the fertility exists. So everything needs carbon and everything needs nitrogen. I'm talking on the bacterial, a very, very small scale. Typically, a bacteria needs, a 5-to-1, 5 carbon to 1 nitrogen. The average is between 5 and 8. There are some bacteria that are 1-to-1, and there's some as high as 15-to-1. But those are the extremists. They're not the average group. So if you're getting your soil to that level, that means that it's so bioavailable to the bacteria, and that's going to also bring in the protozoa. So that's why you're getting that incredible value, is because you're giving that food or you're giving the microbes everything they need to just proliferate. And that will show in plant reaction when you do actually plant on it. So that's a wonderful test, man. That was really cool. Now let's talk about nutritional panels. Like the hay guys, have they ever sent their hay in for what we call feed analysis? So you know what the animal's actually gaining from eating that hay.
I personally have not done any of that at this point in time. Again, I've been bootstrapping this, so I run it through my technology because I can look at all the different elements. You know, the selenium, the copper, you know, the yttrium, all the minor stuff. We're seeing them show up and they're there. But again, it doesn't translate over because I'm not running those kinds of actual feed panel tests like you're talking about. Which are scheduled to be here in the near future, because I'm having a lot of ranches, you know, beef and meat animals start to use our stuff because of the volume of hay that we can produce, as well as the overall veterinary bill pretty much vanishes.
Yep. I was going to say it drops, man. That's the one thing that the horse people said. Like my horse isn't sick anymore. What the hell was in that hay? No nutrition.
Yeah. So it's actually making the food actual medicine like it was intended to years ago. Which food today we know all different foods. It's not medicine nowadays if it's conventionally raised at all.
Not even close. So the lab that I've worked with in the past is called it's just on the tip of my tongue. Nestle's Dublin. So Nestle's, you know, obviously Nestle related, but they have labs all over the world to do these nutrient test panels. And I would say to, you know, like any of the guys that are transitioning, the ranchers, say, hey, you know, if you want to have this hay tested, you know, maybe offer them 50-50. So it's not coming out of one person's pocket. It makes it a little bit more affordable. But that will give you, you know, the evidence that you need on transitioning farmers who are on the fence. You can say, hey, look, you know, you don't have to believe me. Here's the test results. Yeah. This is what your animal's going to eat versus this is what your traditional agricultural hay is going to feed you or give your animals.
Sure.
I found that to be a helpful tool when it's not coming out of your mouth, but it's a piece of paper from a third-party verification. So.
That makes a difference. I appreciate that tidbit. I'll look that up because I've got a few ranchers that are looking for that information right now because they want to know.
Yep. And it's right in Ohio. It's in Dublin, Ohio, and it's called Nestle Dublin.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And you've got a good amount of questions, so I'm going to bounce us into questions 7 minutes early here because I saw some of the questions. I didn't thoroughly read them, but they're going to take a minute to answer. So. There's Ken. Ken, why don't you go ahead and start firing away?
Well, and Farmer Cheryl was asking on another show about soil saviors, so she's got quite a few questions for you. First one: how do biodynamics and biodynamics preps differ from KNF and IMOs?
So, are you familiar with natural farming or Korean natural farming?
Slightly. I mean, I've heard of it. I've not really followed much because I'm on my own path. But if you want to explain it, can you let me know what it is briefly, and then we can go from there?
Yeah. So, I'll try to spoon this, and then once I finish, you can pipe in. So, IMOs are indigenous microorganisms. The way they're harvested is in usually a wooden box with a bunch of holes drilled in it, and you put down rice cooked al dente. That's critical.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know about that. Yeah.
And then you bury the box, you know, in undisturbed. So the soil, the best soil you can find that you know it's never been farmed or never really been disturbed or was disturbed 100 years ago or 50 years ago. So you know it has had time to recover. You got to wait like a minimum of 3 days, and then at that point you almost need to check it daily. But you have to be really careful because you don't want to open it up every time. It's a little bit of finesse. You need to have some experience because you could kind of tell by the holes that you've drilled whether you're starting to get some of the the IMO to plume. The other interesting aspect that most people don't understand is that's molds and yeasts. It's not the actual saprophytic or mycorrhizae fungi, but it is the foundation for them to be able to grow. It's like successionary steps. You have to have that first in your soil. You have plenty of spores, both mycorrhizae and saprophytic, but you don't have the foundations for them to actually bloom and grow out. So this is like a baby food for them. So that's kind of the foundation of Korean natural farming. That's where you start. Then there are many, many preps. A lot of different like microbial preps. There are calcium preps. There's every potassium preps. All your main macronutrients, and I'm going to say that macro because calcium, potassium are definitely, well, calcium is definitely a macro and it's not appreciated. We already know potassium is, but bottom line is that you can, have the opportunity to use things that you already have around your house. Other than the IMO, you're going to have to travel for that. But most of the other stuff you can actually mix or purchase at a store yourself. And this gets diluted to ridiculous dilution ratios, like 1,000 to 1, 2,000 to 1, 500 to 1 with water. And they actually work, right? But those are generally, I consider those more like foliar applications. Like I did a calcium prep on soil and I was able to swing the ppm of calcium in my soil, but I broke the rules. Like I did it like 100 to 1 dilution instead of 1,000 to 1 dilution. And I was yelled at because I did it, but it worked, right? I'm always experimenting. So it does have value. It really does. But I think you've gone way, way over the top because again, your foundation was with biodynamics, and in biodynamics, it's all about the ethereal energy. It's about moon, new moon, full moon. It's about, you have, I think it's 8 or 9 preps. It is 500 to 509, or maybe it's even 511, where KNF has a lot more variety of preps. But again, you're not biodynamic. You're light years ahead or beyond the biodynamic realm because of what you've done. So I think, Cheryl, that's the important thing to understand.
I'd like to add just a little more if I could, because some of our cultures, again, we have the biodynamic prep side of it, and the IMO is definitely part of that. But we've got some of the extremophiles that have been harvested by some of my mentors over the years from extreme environments. We're talking like 20 some thousand feet above sea level in temperatures and oxygen levels and pressures that are not normal down here. At 2,000, and then some of these microbes have been harvested, 8,500 feet at the bottom of the ocean in a high sulfur, high temp vent, and then all the in between those two extreme environments and everything in between. And so they've been harvested, and then we've got those now in cultures that are viably for storage and for shipment, and then to get them to get along together, to work together once they're deployed into the environment in your yard or in the field or wherever in your pond. When you then deploy them, they got to get along and work together. And so that's what we've been able to do, is get them to be in working together in unison to complement each other. So then they're building upon each other rather than fighting against each other in an environment. So there's a little bit of that natural science, we'll call it engineering, if you will, but getting them to get along together, that's been the hard part that I think we've done a really good job at getting them to do the work together, to create the environment, to break down the petroleum, the pesticide residues, the GMO, the synthetic proteins and things like that, to break all that down, then to make that environment better than it was before you put these microbes down.
And just another caveat that the 500 prep, the cow horn buried in the soil captures protozoa, nematodes, bacteria. You know, it's not just an IMO box. It's the other half of the world. See, fungi is one, the microbes or the bacteria, the protozoa, the nematodes. That's the other half of the nutrient cycling system. So that's another piece of the puzzle that when you're dealing with Korean natural farming is you don't get into predation or predators or you know these nematodes and nutrient cycling amoebas and flagellates until IMO4 when you're mixing it with the soil. And it's really critical that when you're making IMO4 that you're using the best quality, least disturbed, highly microbial community soil that you can find. And that's also a challenge because if you're in a farming community, everything's been farmed. And if it wasn't farmed, it got nailed with drift from the pesticides. So it's a real challenge. I mean, it's like, what comes first, chicken or the egg? How can you fix the soil when you don't have the nutrients or the microbial communities to do the work? So that's where natural farming comes up short to what you're talking about or what you're doing, or perhaps even to what I'm doing. I mean, yeah, once you have a healthy plant, okay, easy. Now natural farming, you can run with it. But getting it to healthy soil and healthy plant, that's the real challenge with where I think natural farming falls a little short. I mean, I'm not saying that they're wrong, they're not. And all these camps should be getting along anyway. Like biodynamics, natural farming, soil food web, we're all in the same damn community, and yet we fight each other. Say, oh, you got to do it my way. So that's always been my beef. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I look at is the junk that's coming out of the sky, which we've known it's been there for 40 plus years coming out of the sky, is really heavy in a lot of this industrial waste items like aluminum and lead and things like that arsenic that's coming down, which has altered the pH and the whole matrix inside the soil. So it's acidified the soil to the point where the native microbes really are the native microbes have really taken a decimation in strain diversity. And because I've tested soils enough to know around the country that the diversity of species in just regular ag soil right now, like in Iowa, for instance, or Illinois, is so deficient of diversity. And we're seeing now things like Bacillus thuringiensis, the modified version, not the natural version, but the modified version that they're putting in the BT as the pesticide that's in the corn, is actually living freely out in nature now and multiplying out in nature in soil freely. And so it's that, so when there's almost no commercially available farmland that has natural native organisms anymore, because they've been modified due to the crap coming out of the sky and or just things like the BT toxins, the Bacillus thuringiensis toxins that they've spliced into corn or cotton or soybeans or any of the other 30 other plants that they have. So this is where I kind of say we've got to add the diversity back into the soil that is not there anymore. It's gone. It's been gone for a solid 100 years, really, based on like Burke's essay of bacterial. Their book, they've you can see the diversity disappear and change if you just read through those books from 100 years ago to now. It's significantly different. So that's what I'm saying is that what they're calling native a lot of times, just because it's living in the environment does not mean it's a natural element, a natural organism anymore. It's a lot of these GMOs are living freely out in the soil.
That's a very valid point, and I think actually the degradation started a lot earlier than that. It's really once mass expanded across the globe and killed off the mass migrations of the animals. So when the birds land in the lakes or rivers or whatever, they're pulling all kinds of aquatic microorganisms that are attached to their feathers, their legs, and they're flying them out and just dropping them like little bomblets across the soil, and vice versa. All the soil microbes would get washed gently down the river. In the spring when everything melted, all those organisms were now introduced into aquatic environments. So the globe itself was self-fertilizing, constantly mixing and reestablishing all of the different organisms, and then just letting nature select. And so that's why we had the Garden of Eden till humanity fucked it up.
Really good point. Yeah.
Another time.
And Will, it really sounds like what you put together, you balanced out with Mother Nature, and the biology is being able to work together because it's now in balance in the product that you've put together.
Yeah.
That's what we've always tried to keep, is the balance, or the ability to keep a harmony in amongst basically a diverse group of organisms, but keep a balance, or the ability or potential to stay in balance, rather than going, none of our things can go pathogenic. They've never done that. They've always stayed in unison. They've worked together. So I'm kind of really proud of that particular point, because that's key in my book, not to go pathogenic, to stay in harmony and keep and work together to hold a balance.
Good man. Yeah, you basically did. You created, Eden's bliss, something that can really bring the soil back to life.
Okay, well, let's go to the next question. Another one from Farmer Cheryl. It would be good to know how Soil Saviors performs with biosolids. Has this been tested?
Yeah, that's the PFAS study. That was all biosolids. So we were able to break all the PFASs, the chemicals and so forth down. Like I said, it was supposed to be a 4-month study, but it ended up being 2 months, and we successfully, it was a success for us anyhow, that we broke that stuff down and digested it with our products. So yes.
It'd be really interesting is pharmaceuticals. So they're finding, in the water release, not even the biosolids, which I'm sure there's a ton of it caked in the biosolids, but just the water alone, there are so many pharmaceuticals that are escaping out into our oceans and, hurting the wildlife. So at some point, that might be another interesting area to look at, is to see, if you spray your product into discharge water that's going right into the rivers and the oceans, what happens? Does it start eating up the pharmaceuticals?
We've done that already. We've completed that. If we can have a pond situation, like a digesting pond preliminary before it goes fully discharged out, we can break that down. We've done that, and with all manner of pharmaceutical. Our problem is finding a lab to give us the data, because as soon as they find out what we're doing, then it changes, because the funding for most of these labs don't want that kind of information out. So if you know of any labs that will legitimately work with pharmaceutical residue testing, I would be glad to do that. But I've spent a lot of money, tens of thousands actually, and got no results, because once they caught wind of what we were actually doing, then it didn't work. So we didn't get our data back.
Isn't that incredible?
Mm-hmm.
What money can do.
Yeah. Power and money. Yep. Let's go to the next question. Another one from Farmer Cheryl. Can it work on microplastics to transform them? This is very needed.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because microplastics in general are they come from petroleum, or they come from a plant-based product. And so as long as you can go through the composting process or digestion process, then I say I like using a compost pile. There's nothing that we can't run through that pile to break it down and make it into a usable element. I've done all kinds of plastics and petroleum and oil and different just greases and things, plant-based, wood. I mean, if you can grind it up, you can get it moist, and you can keep it in out of the sun, like in a windrow or a pile. Our microbes can break it down.
Damn. You ever heard of fatbergs?
Fatbergs.
So in the sewer systems all across the U.S. and around the world, they get these giant plugs. That's all these greases and fats.
Oh yeah.
Plug. Yeah. And then once that plug goes, like it's a torrent of shit behind it. We had a fatberg blow out here in San Diego, and they had video of drone footage of just showing this freaking nasty ass like streak of water, dark nasty water, and then all these little pieces of the fatberg washing up on the shore. So if you could pour that down, municipal systems, or get the municipal companies to purchase it to do that, that would be huge. Because again, they're going to consume it and use it in a way that's beneficial, and then they're going to clean up the environment around it, which would be amazing.
I've tried my best to get into those, and it's a political nightmare, because again, it's who funds all of those things. Unless it's a private system, like for a college or something like that. But then you get into all these administrative problems. Believe me, I've been in meetings and have had things turned down. So I'm working at trying. I just quit. It's just a nightmare of administrative politics to try to do that when we can help the individual homeowner grow good food, and so that's where we're focusing in that way. It's just the big political monsters. They're going to have to learn a different way or start using these natural stuff, because the way they're doing it is not right. Otherwise you wouldn't have plugs like that you're talking about. But until the things in that ecosystem of politics changes, we're kind of at a standstill.
Money, greed, and corruption.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go to our next question. Can their products work in all climates and geographical locations? I've heard biodynamics isn't recommended for urban sites.
Our stuff works best in urban. It doesn't matter if you have a 5-gallon bucket and you're growing a tomato, or if you've got 1,000 acres of something. It doesn't really matter. Geography doesn't matter. It's worked in northern Canada to Costa Rica, everywhere in between. I've sent our stuff to Japan, New Zealand, Australia, all over Europe, China. It doesn't really matter. Wow. We can grow in sand, beach sand, really, because everything to grow the plant is right there in the kit.
So, what is your annual revenue?
It's not very much, if you would think, because it's almost unbelievable, and so we're just starting to pick up now with some marketing stuff. So it's just starting now to pick up.
Because you talk like you're global, like holy shit.
I've been selling for a long time, but it's always been onesie twosie stuff. Right. It's not been, and again, the commercial fertilizer in academia has really made it affordable and simple to use commercial fertilizers. And now it's coming to a point where commercial fertilizers are not, the price of them is really skyrocketing. And so people are starting to gravitate over our way, because now the awareness of people to notice now the contaminants with commercial fertilizers and pesticides is getting quite large. People are starting to really understand the negative effects of commercial fertilizers and pesticides. And so now with the economics of these fertilizers and pesticides getting higher priced, it's making our stuff now be affordable because of just the dollars. Mm-hmm. And we've made it really simple now. We've taken pretty much the guesswork out of everything. You follow these directions, like a cake mix you're buying now in a box of cake mix. You use, here's your measurements, add water, stir, spray. It's really user friendly now. Where in the past, going through some R&D cycles to get to this point was it was a little bit more complicated, but now we've got it dialed in now to where it's pretty simple.
Nice. Yeah, you're right about the awareness. I mean, just Roundup alone is now 5x stronger than it used to be because so many weeds have adapted to it.
Right.
So the economics are getting closer in the favor of natural ways versus the synthetic.
And the economics is just on the fertility side. If you look at the economics, like I shared before, where if you use our stuff, you're going to get a more value for your crop. They don't even look at that side of it, the after the end product. It's just the economics on the front end, on the fertility side of it. If you take into account the whole growing cycle, so you've got the fertility program in the beginning, and then the exaggerated yields and all the other value added that you sell, like the tomato guy made $65,000 more per acre with using 4 applications. So 4 applications basically for him was $75 times 4, so $300. It cost him $300 for that acre application, 4 applications, and he made $65,000 more. Okay, so the economics in that, if you look at from start to finish, it's unquestionable. Like you can't even, like you've got to be blind, deaf, dumb, and your fingers can't even feel your braille to see that there is so much value there through the whole growing cycle and the sale of something, even like the hay, 100% over 100% increase in tonnage per acre. Like that was totally worth $150 an acre application.
And you're not even talking about pesticides and the labor.
We're not even talking about that. Exactly.
And the labor to spray it, because every time you're going out in that field, you're burning diesel, burning equipment, maintenance, et cetera.
Paying someone to sit in the seat and do the work if you're not doing it yourself. I mean, so just economically, it's becoming now a really viable option because people are starting to look at the big picture now. Before, they just looked at it as, oh, that's just expensive fertilizer. I can just buy this Miracle Grow or whatever. I can just buy this other stuff and do that. Well, the environment is changing drastically now. It's really looking favorably, and people, you can go to the site and just check out. Things are saying now are so inspirational for me. It's and anyone else going to the site and looking as well.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to our next. Or did you have something more to say?
No, I'm good. He said it all. He said preaching for years.
Well, we talk about the insurance industry, and a lot of farmers, have trouble getting crop insurance, going to a more organic or natural methodology. They can't even get the insurance. Is that something you've ran into, Will?
Yeah, that's a really big thing because the insurance company and the bank pretty much controls commercial agriculture because the farmer can't get the loan. If the farmer can't get a loan for his fertility program or his diesel fuel or his operating expenses, then he can't get insurance either for the crop. And so really the typical commodity farmer has his hands tied because if the bank don't allow it and the insurance company won't insure it, then he can't get it. And so right now that environment or that ecosystem is really corrupt in that way because we're a natural product. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so even though we have all this testing and all this analytical data, we haven't gone down the path to go down all of this because I'm not interested in commodity farmers, to be honest with you. I'm not interested in dealing with corn farmers because most of your corn is not a food anyhow. It's a commercial venture. It's going for fuel or it's going for something else that I don't really agree with anyhow. I'd much rather have a family use the products to grow their own food for themselves or for their neighborhood. That is what I'm after. That is what is, that's kind of like the Victory Gardens back in World War II. That is what I'm after. This is for food production. This is not for a commercial industrial product production, really, because they don't really care if there's nutrient density. They don't care if the pesticide residues are on that corn, if it's going to go for ethanol, or if the beans are going to go for something else like your deep fat fryer oil. They don't even care what's in there at all. Actually, they like the chemicals in there because it has a longer shelf life in the bottle. And so I'm not interested in any of that. I'm interested in providing healthy fertility for people that want to raise their own food for their families and their children.
Good for you.
So more of your market gardens and your small home gardeners is more the market that you're really after.
Yeah, the high value crops, which is your foods, your strawberries and your tomatoes, and those people understand value because they're paid for value. So the higher the bricks rating that your crop can produce, the more money you're going to make going into these high value markets. That's the mark, and of course the family food production. But that's of interest because that directly dictates your health of the people consuming the food, but it also is they're paying for you to be and care for your soil more.
Yeah. Well, I know I grew up, my family had a organic strawberry farm. And when you actually picked one of those strawberries and put it in your mouth, the flavor burst that you would get, it was soft and the juices were just flowing where you went to the store and it tasted like cardboard. We actually had people come out and go, these aren't good. They don't taste like the ones in the store. And it's like, oh my God.
So we have receptors in our mouth all over, electrical receptors. And if your food does not have the mineral diversity, the colloid mineral diversity, as well as the electrolyte diversity, they don't get triggered. And so therefore taste is reflective of the nutrient quality of that food. Like you say, a strawberry, for instance, or a cucumber. If you have the full spectrum of those minerals in there, you're going to be able to taste that difference because that mineral is going, or those electrolytes are going to trigger the receptors in your mouth that then sends a signal to your brain of like, oh, wow, so that is a really easy way because a strawberry today, like you said, does not taste like strawberry that I had on my farm. I mean, you put it in your mouth, man, and it's like your taste buds are shooting saliva out of your mouth while you're chewing, and it becomes a whole sensory experience rather than you're just eating this blah piece of strawberry, or tomato or whatever.
Well, you literally have a experience. That's a nice way to put it.
Exactly. That's the difference.
Yeah. Our next question, shifting kill. Is it healthy to breathe fermented? My backyard explodes with gas when I open my bucket of hydrolysate.
Well, so this is an interesting question. Fermentation, yes, you're going to create a lot of gases. Would his product consume the gases? I would assume yes, but it's not going to ferment the same way.
Ours, if you follow the directions, we don't have a gas buildup like that because you've got basically a 24 to 36 hour window of once you mix everything in the water, you need to apply it because you don't want our stuff to go into that level of activity until it's been deployed on the soil. If you keep that in a container, our stuff in a container for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, you're going to start to get noxious gases in there because those organisms are coming alive once you've mixed them, and then they're going to start competing for space and for food, and that is when you get the noxious gases and the things that you do not want to breathe, because that is a sign of improper fermentation with our products. I don't know about anybody else's, but ours, you mix them, you want to deploy them within a day and getting them out and get them active, because otherwise you're going to have war going on in your bucket, and you do not want to breathe that in.
So there's the answer is no, you don't want to breathe it in.
That's right. Well, that will cause respiratory stress, and then if your immune system is challenged and then you breathe those gases in, you might not feel well. The thing, you don't want to do that. You just don't want to do that.
Okay. Farmer Cheryl, can you could use some good kelp for my own ferments? Can the earth kelp be acquired separately and for this?
Not from Soil Savers, and in the future, that's going to be coming back online from us. But right now, you'll have to deal with Soil Savers on that. And right now, they're only selling kits there. It's not designed for individual products from them. They're specializing in the kits for homeowner use in a complete system.
So, Cheryl, there are a number of companies out there that sell different kelp products, whether they're water soluble or actual plant material that have been dried. So just take a look around. You do a little net surfing, you should be able to find something.
Yeah, they're out there.
And our final question, with the yields the market gardeners get, has this product been tested in market gardens, and what do they find? Can they be put in the soil, some of what they produce, and still be profitable?
The people that I know of that are using it that way have no problems with the profitability. So they're not only putting it in the soil, though, but getting a couple applications on foliarly. That's going to get you the yields and the overall flavor profiles that you're after. Because putting it in the soil is one thing, like we were talking about earlier with Leighton and I, we were saying that it's because of the fast acting, because the plant will just use it up so fast, you have to reapply the foliar during the growing season to then keep up with the demands of the plant.
Mm-hmm. And so I think the question also was kind of seeing if you could still make enough money to take some of the crop and put it back into the soil, kind of like Sir William talked about. So returning a third back.
Oh, that way. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because you've got such a bigger yield, especially if you're doing the farm markets yourself, direct marketing, or through just one broker or something. Everyone that I talk to, they have no problem. Their undesirables or whatever, composting them back and putting that back into the soil.
All right. You're making enough, and there is one more question, and if I don't get to it, I'll get a frying pan in the back of the head from my wife. But Cheryl, yes, you can definitely, because you're producing so much more, you can take a portion of that and compost it to put back in your soil for the organic material.
Right.
The last question from my lovely wife, Silly. Do you have a product that can be used in a septic system?
You actually can take this and put this into the septic as well, because you're having the microorganisms and the food for them to then go. If you just put this in this, you can dump some of it in the system. I do that personally. I do that, so it works extremely well.
Cool.
Fantastic. Well, we did it, guys. We got through that. I mean, dude, you're gonna have to come back. There was a lot of stuff that I wanted to get to that we didn't have an opportunity to.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So let's get you back on in 3 or 6 months, whatever convenient for you. We really appreciate you giving us 2 hours of your time today.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Come on and dive deep about all this. And Ken, as always, thank you for all the behind the scenes work you put into making this happen every week. So thank you.
And Will, don't run away, because my wife has a couple of questions after the show to ask you. But
okay,
to let you guys know, we've got Terraganics coming on. So the creators of EM1, They're coming on for next week. We're actually booked out, and we're booking into I think it's June now. So we've got lots of people coming up. So you guys are gonna want to check that out. Hopefully, I'll be back on with Andy on Wednesday. I was the one that was sick this last Wednesday, so we didn't do the show. But we got the Wednesday. We got the ladies on Thursday, and of course, Dr. Paula's doing her series on Sunday. So you guys are gonna want to check that out as well. But guys, we love you all. If you can, use the join button on YouTube, help support the channel. It really does help us to be able to keep this going and give you guys more fantastic comments. So peace out, everybody. We'll let the dogs go for their walk on the beach.